Okay, we are live.
Okay, we have no countdown today. No dancing, no. I was going to go on Facebook and share. I'll do that later. It's all good. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Market of the Moment with Fidelity National Title. I am the Don Tchaikovsky today. I'm Sharon Terhune, Vice President and Sales Manager for Fidelity National Title. Get to see you all every week as Don's co-host weekly. We let him take a vacation, so we have joining me on as my partner today in crime is Tammy Gray. She's a sales executive on our sales team and is going to help navigate the discussion with me today. As you know, we have been discussing for the last couple of weeks coaching, and we are going to tap into coaching as well today. Very exciting topic. We have covered so many great things in the last couple of weeks and learned so many things. So if you missed those episodes, please go back onto our Facebook pages and take a look. You can always watch them, but lots of great information. And I'm going to introduce our special guest today, who has a very unique approach to coaching, which I think you're all going to really enjoy. But before I do that, I just want to welcome Mindy Jones. Mindy Jones, the owner of the Amy Jones Group at Keller Williams Integrity First. Amy Jones Group, who is amazing and very, very prevalent, especially out there in the East Valley. Mindy, thank you for joining us today, as always. And I know you're going to give us a great market update later. And you always have great stuff to chime in. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about coaching. And I know in the past couple of weeks, too, we've all said, even with the guests we've had on, we're all coached, right? So lots of good conversation there. We also are joined today, and we're going to hear about, Dan, you got a lot to live up to because we've been talking about free money for the last few weeks. I don't know. Those interest rates are still under that 3%, but we have with us Mr. Dan White, a good friend and partner of mine over at Fairway Independent Mortgage, and very excited to have Dan join us today and give us that market update a little later today. But before we get there, we're going to go ahead and start with our special guest today. He's probably not a face that you haven't seen because Ty is out there everywhere. And if you haven't seen him on a real estate transaction or on social media, you probably saw him somewhere playing music or doing something really fun. But Ty Lusk is the Director of Sales for the Kenny Klaus team at Keller Williams Integrity First. And Ty has a very unique situation because he actually has 4 coaches, which is crazy. I'm like, we're trying to find folks, who has a coach, lots of people have a coach. No, Ty is an overachiever. Ty actually has 4 coaches, and he's going to talk about what those coaches do. I can't wait to hear a little bit about that. But welcome, Ty. Let's start there. I have to hear who are these 4 coaches and what do they look like in your world? I'm just curious now.
Yeah, thanks. It's awesome to be here. So for the last 5 or 6 years, of course, I've got a business coach. And that is with a company called MAPS, which is within the Keller Williams organization, is for a mastery coach, they call it. And so we have a call 30 minutes once a week, and I track my numbers. We have goals we go after, and he's really my kind of business coach, and also helps me with ideas to coach the 15 agents we have on our team, which is my role here. And then I've played guitar for a long time. You mentioned I love that as an outlet and a passion. And I just sort of got into a plateau. And so I just started taking guitar lessons after like 20 years of playing the guitar. And I'm blown because there's so much I don't know that I'm soaking up now. That's pretty cool. I've got a fitness coach who helped me train for my first ever marathon earlier this year and was able to, kind of in the off season, if you will, help keep me in shape and running. So she really helps me a lot with fitness and running and that kind of stuff. And then recently just started taking golf lessons. So now I've got a golf kind of swing instructor as well. So a lot of it's fun stuff. The business coach is what lays the groundwork to be able to do all the other stuff for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I love that you've embraced the coaching concept and have realized that, having guidance of those that are successful in any part of your life is always going to lead to more success in your life as well. And so I love that you're open to that. We've enjoyed hearing so many different stories of what the coach really does and what they bring to the table. on the business side for you, Ty, what do you think is that biggest aha that you've had with your business coach?
Well, the coaches have changed a little bit over time as my career has evolved. So whenever I came to join the Klaus team about 3.5 years ago, I got a new coach, and that had been somebody who has been in my position for a mega massive team within an organization. So knows exactly what I do and what the challenges are and the successes. And so what he does is he helps keep me focused on bigger picture of like life and progression and wealth management and building toward retirement. But even more important than that in my role is that he helps me with ideas of how to take what he's teaching me and share that with our team. So we'll have strategic conversations about what's working in other parts of the country. He coaches 30 something top producers. So what are they doing well? What's working for them? And he's able to share from different marketplaces ideas. And then I use that, implement that personally. And then of course I share those ideas. I just hold them accountable to give me one good idea per week that I can implement and go share with our team. And that, that's the investment that I've got in our time together, is to make sure that I can share valuable ideas coming from him with our team.
Is he a coach of different industries, or is he a real estate industry coach?
He focuses primarily on real estate, but he has been a guest speaker in outside industries, but primarily he works with people in real estate sales and in leadership roles, essentially.
Interesting. Mindy, is your coach is primarily real estate or other industries? Well, I'm wondering.
I think, and probably I'm sure Ty will attest to this, when we talk about coaching can come in a variety of different forms, the same way that accountability can come in a variety of different forms, right? I always tell my team, you can pay for accountability. So that can be a coach, that can be a class, that can be something where a therapist, it could be a psychologist, it can be a million different things, but you actually pay for the service. Accountability can look like finding a peer group who's looking to achieve the same types of goals that you are, or have achieved goals that you're looking to achieve. So more of like a mentorship kind of opportunity. So for me, coaching comes in so many different forms. I would say a traditional business coach is what I see kind of from a business perspective. And that's also same through MAPS, just like Ty mentioned. But I also see coaching through the other avenues that I've explored in my community. So I just was accepted to the Gilbert leadership class through the Gilbert Chamber of Commerce. That to me is a coaching environment, because I'm around people who are in different industries. We're doing a lot of the things that Ty is talking about from an accountability perspective, from a sharing best practices perspective. So I think that's, a key piece of the coaching conversation for folks out there. If you haven't explored paying for accountability, there are lots of opportunities and ways to make that coaching format really accessible.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Ty, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, in the beginning, it was a big pill to swallow, because I was like, man, this is a big investment. And so typically, if I'm going to invest something, I want to have at least a 4 times return on the money I'm going to put into it. So I said, look, I'll try this for a year. Everybody I looked at that were the hyper successful all had a coach. So I knew there had to be something to it. But I was like, it's a lot of money to invest, every month. So I gave it a year and decided that if I could make at least 4 times my investment, I would keep going. And it ended up being about almost 5 times in the first year, and has been exponential since that time. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago, I think, was when I first started with business coaching. So I just held it accountable to the money I was investing to what it was returning on increased production. And I saw it within the first 6 months, and within the first year, it was more than my minimum threshold for return. And so I just kept doing it, and then it kept compounding. So that's been a really nice benefit. And always, keeping track of my numbers, right? We have to know our numbers, and that's one of the first thing I can do is turn a report in every week. How many appointments I go on? How many did I convert? How many contacts did I make? How much do I have made so far this month? What was my pipeline? So goals, the things that I've got to pay attention to every day and every week, and that has to be ready to go before we're even on the call.
Yeah, I love that. You have lots of folks, like you mentioned, that you're coaching. So how does that coach know how to guide you does the coach meet with those folks as well? It sounds like you're coaching them and you're getting coached. So how do they know how to direct you the right way based on so many different personalities and people on your team, or is it sort of a blanket, overview?
Well, we kind of approach it each week as, hey, here are a few things that came up in the past week, and how would you suggest we handle that? Or what are your ideas? We've got an idea for a contest or implementation. What have you seen work well? What are we maybe not seeing? What are our blind spots? That happens a lot. What am I not realizing? But specifically to agents, let's say that there were 2 incidents in the last week where, the agent was in a scenario they had not been in, and I had to walk them through that or coach them through that. Then getting feedback from the coach, or best ways to handle different personality types, or best ways to connect or communicate with different types of people. Because Lord knows I'm really just a therapist on the team pretty much. But having to deal with the personalities, I don't coach everybody the same. I mean, I wouldn't, because they're not the same people, and their motivations are different, and their threshold for involvement or their family needs, like all these things vary so much that I've got to really take a unique approach with every individual. So to that point, a lot of times it's helpful to bounce off my coach. Hey, this is going on, or this person is struggling with this. What advice do you have? How can I talk to them about this? Or maybe things I'm not thinking about that you could help guide me through.
So you're giving him scenarios of things that are taking place, and he's kind of walking you through what he would suggest and thoughts there, and how it might help them. Because you're right, every single person, even on our team, is completely different. So when I'm coaching, some people, take coaching very differently, in different ways. And some are more, obviously open to honest feedback. Some, it takes a little harder. That's what you got to be open to talk about it. Otherwise, you're not going to get better, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's humbling. At times for
how has that been perceived with everyone?
It can be raw and vulnerable, and we're coaching, the person first, and then the business, because I feel like that it's really a holistic approach where the mindset's the number one thing we have to work on for most people. How are you thinking, and where does that come from, and are you okay with that, or do you want to change it? And if you do want to change it, awesome. Here are some direct steps we take. So very big into goal setting, we went to a 12-week year off the book this year, where we're not even looking at annual goals. We're looking at what are you going to do in the next 3 months in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. What are your big rocks? And then what do you want to accomplish in that time? And we just kind of broke it down into smaller chunks of the year. And that's been a really big benefit from a coaching standpoint, because what happens? Somebody gets behind their goal exponentially in the first 2 months from their year goal. They're like mentally out of it potentially. But if we say, hey, let's just focus on these sprints, these 3 months. Let's just see what we can do in that time. We had somebody on our team who got married in the first quarter because she'd been putting it off, and we made her put a deadline on it. She chose to get married, and she did it. And then we sent her on a honeymoon as a team. So, literally that kind of stuff is so cool to see when we're talking about goal setting. It's not all business. It's certainly a lot of personal development as well.
Sharon, can I talk about
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Yeah, for sure.
So, Ty, I know one thing that's helpful for me, and you have 4 coaches, right? So, one thing that's helpful for me, I pay a coach every year, and it's just done a world of good for me. Uncertainty, when I'm facing times when should I grow? Should I hire another person? Talk to me about that, how that plays out in your business a little bit.
Well, it's a really good point that you bring up, Dan, because I've shifted focuses for different divisions. So we have an iBuyer division, and we have a passive agent division where we help people transitioning out of real estate and adopt their database, and then provide leads for our team and then take them out. So he helps me with strategies like, okay, well, this week I'm really focused on the silver group, which is our division where we help families in transition into like assisted living or independent living or memory care, and we help them with their real estate needs and then coordinate all their needs for the family. So I'm focusing on that. We don't have a who in that position. So the coach will say, if I'm saying, hey, this week, I really want to focus on some ideas to advance passive agent. I really need to look at how are we going to really advance silver group. And then we'll brainstorm in that session about activities that I'll commit to that would help us in that aspect at that time. And that target will change. We're kind of counterbalancing with the attention that we're focusing on each division within the overall organization. And he's been a huge help to kind of help me focus on ideas one at a time as the focus, is needed for those independent divisions.
I think it can take some of the uncertainty out. Like when you're trying to make those decisions in your different divisions, to have somebody to say, what do you think about this? Because that's real money, right? When you're going to spend those dollars and either on advertising, and I know you guys do a lot of that, and is this something that we're going to see the return? And somebody can be a little bit more objective because we tend to be a little more, it doesn't matter how analytical you are, you tend to be more emotional about something you want to do rather than be able to step back and look at the numbers. I think that's really it's been a huge benefit for me as far as hiring a coach and using someone for that.
Dan, do you think that your coach offers you just fresh perspectives or looks for your blind spots, or what do you think is some of the most effective ways that your coach helps you?
I think the blind spot thing is super important. That's really where it is, because you're thinking, okay, everything's lining up, and they can point out some blind spots that you're not seeing because you really want something to work. So you're looking for reasons for it to succeed when they may have seen that issue. My coach is a top producer for years, and she can see, okay, you don't need a person, or you do need a person, and why. That was something I've been working on lately. And we almost hired someone, and she disc tested her and said, I don't think you should hire this person. So it was a blind spot. I liked her personality, but she just wasn't a good fit, and pointed it out to me. So I think the blind spot thing is huge. Yeah, it's a great point.
What I love about these coaching conversations is that you can really pick up on the skill that a good coach has to ask really great questions. And in any conversation that I've had with someone, I'm always looking at my conversations as growth and learning opportunities. I don't always know what I'm trying to learn from someone. I don't always know why my paths have crossed with them, but I live a life that is based on the idea that our connections in this world are how we solve big problems. And so when I meet with people, I'm always trying to uncover, what was my purpose for this conversation? What am I supposed to learn for this conversation? I am a super verbal person, which is not surprising to any of you, but I believe in the power of words. So when I listen to people, I'm always trying to pick up on the way that they're asking me things. And there's been times that I'll have conversations with people where I'll share something with them, maybe an idea I've been mulling over, or a thought that I've had that I maybe have not vocalized to anybody. And then somehow they were able to get it out of me, even though I have no long-standing relationship with them. And then I go back and I reflect on, how did that happen? What were the questions that they asked me that helped me to uncover that? And to me, that is one of the skills that makes an excellent coach, because it addresses both things that you mentioned, Ty. It addresses your blind spots, and it addresses providing a unique perspective. But the beauty is all of that came from within, right? It just was uncovered through expert question asking.
Well, I think what's really great about it too is, once you've been in real estate for a while, right, like 5 years plus, you tend to settle into a routine where you do things the same way all the time, or you think there's only one way to do it. So I love that, Dan's perspective on the blind spot. A lot of times I'll meet with agents and they're doing something a certain way and they haven't thought to do it any other way. So just having that other perspective, I always equate it to sports. I'm pretty sure Tom Brady knows what he's doing at this point. But guess what? He's still working with 5 or 6 coaches on a daily basis. So it's just, I think it's awesome. And just like Sharon mentioned, we coach with her every month, because something, especially in real estate, something's always changing, and you got to stay in front of it. So.
Yeah, Dan, on your coach, is your coach in the mortgage industry? I was going to ask you that. Just the way you were talking, it sounds like it's somebody that's a top loan officer.
She's in California, and she was a $200 million a year producer, and she was one of the, for 5 years running, she's one of the top 100 most influential mortgage executives in the business. And so she carries a ton of credibility, and I just learned a ton from her. And that's the thing. I think that person has to have walked the walk. You know, they need to understand it. They need to understand the pain. We're in a motivation business, all of us. And you know, you've got to have someone that understands the highs and lows and understand how to help you navigate through that and stay present in the day. For me is big, and also be intentional. I know everybody throws that around, but every morning I try to line up my day and figure out when I'm going to do business development and when I'm going to get things done. And, you know, just, she's been super helpful with those types of habits. So yeah, because she understands. I mean, you could have a closing go south for any of us, right? And all of a sudden your day, someone throws a wrench in your day and you still have to get everything done. So, you know.
Right. Yeah, I was told I had to put an extra block on my calendar of time for those little things, Dan. That's what my coach told me. You can't just have back to back every single day. Just because that's sort of how I'm wired. I don't know what to say.
Or Mindy's calendar. Forget it. No.
I was going to ask you, Dan, is that prep time you have in the morning, is that before I call you or is that after I call you?
You're emailing me at 4 a.m. sometimes, Mindy. So I don't think I can beat you to the punch, so to speak. But the point is that, no, every morning before I go to leave for work about 7:30 or 8, I just, okay, here's where I'm at. Because I'll clear emails off in the morning and then go work out. And then before I go, I put about 15 minutes aside to say, okay, here's what I'm going to accomplish. If I try to set it up before the week, someone throws an appointment in there and then it just goes off. So I need to do it day by day.
Which I don't recommend the 4 a.m. schedule for anybody, but what I would say the takeaway from whether it's my 4 a.m. schedule or Sharon's recommendation around time blocking, the things that you can't control for during the day, you need to get honest and realistic about what your schedule actually looks like. And I'm sure, Ty, I kind of want to have you talk about how you have some of these conversations with folks about aligning their personal and professional goals kind of together as they're putting a plan together, because so much of it is about being honest with yourself and realistic about where you want or need to be spending your time, where you want or need your schedule to look like. Are you a morning? I mean, certainly there's certain habits that necessitate being a quote unquote morning person, but some people are morning people, some people are night people, some people have things that they need to do at a certain time of day, some people don't. And you've got to be honest with what that whole picture looks like, or you're setting yourself up to fail with a plan that you've put into place that maybe wasn't designed for you. So I don't know, maybe Ty, if you could kind of just talk about that piece a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. We have a couple of tools that we use for goal setting and goal tracking. And part of that is, well, how is this going to align with your schedule? You know, our agents that have kids are in a different schedule, so especially when school's in session, right? So they, you know, the needs of every person's different. So if we just were to break it down and say, look, if you could do 15 hours of lead follow-up a week, like 3 hours, 5 days a week, maybe you do it an hour in the morning, maybe there's one after lunch, maybe, you know, you got 4 to 5 or 3 to 4. Like it doesn't, we're not in this myth that you've got to do all that at one time, but can we accumulate at least 3 hours a day of doing some type of generation or follow-up in our data bank? But the tools are interesting because we use one that's called a GPS, and that stands for one goal, which is usually going to be a financial or a unit goal, perhaps. And then there's 3 ways, priorities, they call them, the P of the GPS, and each priority has got 5 strategies. So, for example, we might say, well, what's your number one source of lead generation in your business? And that might be sphere of influence. Okay, well, then what are 5 strategies that we could use to do sphere of influence? Well, I could go to lunch with 1 or 2 people every week that I know. I can make 5 calls a day to people that I haven't talked to in at least a year. I could, join a mommy and me group and go to, park days with other moms and other kids. Whatever that is, we've got 5 strategies. And the top two priorities are usually your two sources of business. So most people at Sphere, it could be prospecting. That's a lot. B2B, we have a lot of agents who work with other professionals. But the number third priority has always been self-development, self-improvement. How many books do you want to read? How many date nights do you want to have every week with your significant other? How many hours a week do you want to have with your kids, right? How many vacation days do you want to take this year? And so then that's 15 strategies essentially, right? For the 3 priorities, 5 each. Then we'll take the top 4 or 6 of those that are the most important to you. It's normally going to be 2 to 3 work and 1 to 3 personal development goals. And we're going to put those in the second tool, which is our weekly tracker. And that's called a 411. And that's where we have an annual goal, or in our case, a quarterly goal. And then, well, what does that break down to per month? All right, well, then what is that per week? So if I need to make, if I want to have, 8 open houses this month, well, I need 2 a week. So week 1, we're going to track that. And if we only hit 1, the next week we got to do 3, right? We're always working on a weekly basis. So these tools are ways to help us focus on the most important activities based on what the options or strategies are for each lead generation portion and each personal development portion. So we break down the most important things from the agent's perspective and then track those weekly. And that's how we know if we're staying on track. And we typically like to track lead measures, which is going to be activities that happen before the result, of course, like number of calls you make, number of doors you knock, number of lunches you go on, number of face-to-faces with past client or sphere of influence. Those are the lead measures that we really are more concerned about, because we trust that the results will come from the experience of just doing those lead measures over and over and over again.
How often we use the GPS as well? Our team does that every year, but we do it once a year with strategies and everything on it. How often are your folks doing that? Are they rewriting it? Are they setting it and kind of just playing off of it every year, or what's that look like?
Well, we visit it at least once a month, but the goals will typically adjust if needed at each quarter. So, for example, I say, hey, this was important to you in March. Is it still important to you? And sometimes you get into the year and what they thought they were going to be doing as a lead generation source in January isn't really what's working. So let's get rid of that. Let's do more of what is working, and let's maybe replace a strategy or 2 that maybe you just never got into or just didn't make the time. And let's exchange that with something more in favor of what is working for you. So it's a working document. We used to have the same way, Sharon. We would just do it in the beginning. We'd look at it in December like, oh, damn, we didn't hit those. All right, we hit those. But we didn't even look at it really. It was on the wall, but we weren't making adjustments. And this is the first year that we really started to just break it down into quarterly or 12-week, a 12-week year, if you will. And that
I like that, actually. I think that's really great. Tammy's eyes are open. She's going, Sharon's taking notes. Hold on.
we know. And I mean, it really has paid off for us because we're not worried about December. We're like, what are we doing now? What are we doing for this rush, this quarter? So it's been for us beneficial to keep our eyes focused on the now.
Yeah, I've not heard of the weekly tracker, the 411 though. That sounds interesting. I'll have to.
Hey, Ty, I've got a question for you. Can you give me the role of scoreboards for you guys? Because I know you do a lot of that. And I think that's a big accountability tool and also a motivator, right?
It is. That's a really good point, Dan. We have like the mother of all scoreboards of any team I've ever seen. And our VP, who's a genius, Scott Koyman, put it together. And so we track everything. Now, number 1 is a leaderboard, right? Number of writtens per month. So everybody wants to be on the leaderboard. You do not want to be that person who has a 0 on that leaderboard at any time by the end of the month, right? You've got to be on it. And then what's the quarter? So we're looking at writtens, closings, volume, number of units, and source, of course. So we've got a big pie chart on there. And for us, past and repeat referral business is number 1. Agent sphere number 2, professional referrals, other realtors and lending partners, that kind of stuff. And now farming is actually number 4 or 5 because all those original farming leads are now past repeat clients. So it's been interesting to see the way that scoreboard has developed over the years. But It is a big deal, Dan. I mean, people come in and they hey man, I just turned in a file. How come my money's on the scoreboard yet? Hey, no, I really got 3 this month, not 2. And it's funny. It's a sense of pride for a lot of people to make sure they're on that board and that everybody knows it.
Well, and I love that because as a sales coach yourself, Ty, how does anybody know, how they're doing if it's not, there's not an accountability factor and you're not scoreboarding it and showing it. We do the exact same thing as well. I mean, it's so important for everyone to know where they're at, where everybody else is and where they should strive to go and be. And, I think that's amazing. Do you find that the team is very receptive to the coaching? I'm just wondering. I mean, obviously, and for retention, I'm just curious on that because I can see that being an amazing retention tool for the team as well.
Well, most are into it. Most really like it, especially anybody who's been in the business less than 3 to 5 years. They tend to be the ones that gravitate more toward it. And then I meet the other ones where they are, right? I mean, our top producers don't need me to talk to them about lead gen or lead follow-up. They need to talk about what's your investment strategy right now, right? Hey, let's get you in with our financial planner. What are you doing for taxes, right? That might be, hey, you guys want to partner on a flip? Why don't we do some investments together? Is there other industries we can look at? Those are the conversations we're having with our top people because once they've gotten the systems down and they're producing regularly and consistently, the conversations just change a little bit. Whereas with the newer agents, it's really about staying on top of what's working in their lead models. It's a lot of rehearsal, a lot of role play, script practice, scenarios. And then we're very diligent about bringing in guest speakers each week to our, used to be called a sales meeting. Now it's a training session every week because we'll have, we'll go out on site and see a home inspection. We just had the general contractor come in yesterday and tell us about what's the new price per foot for everything that, with all the material increase in prices. Structural engineers will come in. We'll have, appraisers come in. So we're really looking to train and coach not just on strategies for sales, but also in market information, right? Like we go to new builds and what is from the outside wall to the inside wall? How do they put the roof on? All these things that we should know, but a lot of agents don't know.
So obviously with 4 coaches, you pay out lots of money a month with, I'm assuming, having 4 coaches. I don't know. Last time I checked, no one's that cheap. I'm just going to say. But, there's value there. How do you substantiate that? And how do you tell some of those more senior, real estate agents on the team, for lack of better, maybe more seasoned, not senior, but seasoned real estate agents that maybe they do need to go get their own coach? Like, how do you help them substantiate the financial, and how do you substantiate in your world as well?
Well, that's one of the value propositions of our team is they have me and they have Kenny. And between us, we've done, a little bit of business. So there's not a lot we haven't seen. And we also both have massive coaches as well. Kenny gets coached by one of the top, MAPS coaches. So we haven't had people who have gone like Buffini, for example, or Tom Ferry, and they really like those styles. And I'm all for that. I mean, if you want to invest more, that may, bring more benefit, 100%. And I just told them the same thing. Let's hold that money accountable. If you're going to pay $1,000 a month or $2,500 a month or whatever you're going to pay, $500, let's just make sure that's an investment, because what you're getting from this needs to be utilized and implemented in order to earn you more money. And then when you do that, then you can pay for 4 coaches. But it's the initial accountability of our money and our investment in that coach and the return that we see on that to determine is it helping or not? And if so, hey, maybe I'll do, I'm not a professional golfer. I'm not going to make money playing golf, but I'd like to be able to play better and it gives me more peace of mind. So let me get better, right? Guitar, I'm making money playing guitar, but I'm not playing stadiums yet. So I can probably get better until I, play the Phoenix Stadium. So those are just things for fun because I've invested in the coaching for my business, which has allowed the resources to hire other coaches for the things I like to do.
You were talking about coaching other people on your team, and I know we talk a lot about emotional intelligence. Are there like tests or how do you determine, just because we know everyone's motivated differently, right? We all assume people are motivated by money. That's not always the case. How do you figure out like their emotional intelligence and how to best support them, I guess.
We go through what's called a career visioning process, which is a personality assessment. It's pretty in-depth. That's really real estate specific. And that helps us a lot when I validate that to make sure that the results are correct, the assessment. And I mean, there's a lot of times where there are tiers in that 90-minute session where we're digging deep into their childhood, where they came from, their whole story. What are their challenges? What are their mindsets? Where do they come from? What are their parents like? What are their siblings like? And so we really get pretty deep early. And that is, once we get to that step, then it's a group interview. So we bring in a leadership group, and then we also have usually at least a couple of the seasoned agents or people on our success team that will sit in. And what's their opinion? What do they think about this person? So it's about, for us, we take about 5 to 6 steps out of that whole longer process for our sales agents. And that tends to give us a pretty good idea up front of who this person is, what their motivations are, why they're here, and what's their drive, what's their work ethic, what do they, why do they want to be successful? And we usually will not make a hiring decision until we don't make a hiring decision until we go through that process. And then from there, we work a lot on culture now. So we're, a lot of get-togethers as a team and stuff that we're doing together, and going to Top Golf or going to crafting, that kind of stuff. So we bring massage therapists in usually every 2 months or so for our success team. So we're doing a lot of those kind of things just to shed the love and let them know that we appreciate them.
Wow, that's so important, Ty. And wow, sounds like you guys have an incredible team over there, and I love the culture that you're building and the coaching culture, which obviously is going to benefit all as a team, and really obviously goes to show with the success that the team is having. So congratulations, and thank you so much for sharing. The assessment that you use, I'm just curious, is it KPI? Because I know you guys have done that in the past. Do you mind sharing what that is?
Yeah, it's a KPA. It's a Keller Personality Assessment. Okay. So it's, it's a in-house kind of Keller Williams assessment. And it's really more specific to real estate, but I don't really look at the job match reports as much or the job fit reports. I really look more at the personal report because I'm more concerned about who the person is. I can teach you to do real estate, but I can't teach you work ethic or motivation. So I want to find out more the personal side. So there's 3 different reports that come from that assessment. I usually focus on the personal report because I care more about who the person is than what their current fit in real estate might be.
What I think is we use those as well when we hire. And I think probably in my personal opinion, the biggest thing you find out on those assessments is if somebody has the will to do it. Because like you said, you can teach someone the skills or the business or, what they need to learn, but you can't teach them with the will. And if they don't have the will to do it, forget it, move on.
That's right.
You're not going to have, that's not going to get it. You're successful or successful title teams like we have over here. So, all right. Well, Ty, thank you so much for sharing. And I know you're going to hang out here because I'm sure you're going to have someone to chime in on some of the market update stuff that Mindy's going to be talking about here. And I know that little inventory is creeping up a little bit. So we're going to talk about that a bit. But let's start with Dan. Dan, tell us what is going on in the world of money and what do you foresee taking place here in the next month and all that? Hopefully staying nice and free.
Yeah. So it's interest rates are still very, very low. We're near historic lows. This last week wasn't favorable to us. Rates did tick up a little bit, but not dramatically. So we're still in the high 2s to low 3s, depending on the scenario. 15 years, you can get in the middle 2s. So that's some pretty darn good stuff still. So it still is super attractive to go out and finance a home, whether you're refinancing or purchasing. And really, most of the refinance business has been taken care of, but there still are a few stragglers out there. Mainly for purchase business, there's just a lot of really great programs coming out. There's a lot going on in the jumbo space right now. So that's something to consider. There's some huge underwriting changes We can now do automated underwriting in jumbo, which makes the process go much, much smoother. And so that's a big change. And some of those jumbo rates, we just locked several right at 3%. So that's something that not everyone thinks about all the time, because we're more kind of focused on what the media talks about, which is mainly Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA loans. But there's really just some incredible stuff going on in other segments of the market. And obviously with price appreciation, those higher dollar loan amounts are definitely coming into play more and more. So we're really excited about what's going on in that space. And so, yeah, there's great programs with lower money down for higher purchase prices as well. So you're going to see a lot of that kind of come to prominence here in the very near future. Where are rates going? That's always, and I'll show you my crystal ball, but it broke. And so, at the end of the day, we don't really know. This last about 2 weeks ago, rates dipped, and that was a real surprise. We didn't foresee that, but there was some serious inflationary concerns, and so that's what caused interest rates to dip, believe it or not. And now we're seeing some of those fears subside. The Fed chairman talked about transitory inflation and some of those things where maybe it's not as permanent or as bad as some of the economists think. So I think long term, what you're going to see is rates are going to creep up till the end of the year. That may slow some of the demand down. That may actually be a good thing to create a little bit less competition for properties, especially in the lower end. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are trying to really disincentivize investors by raising rates on those products. So you're seeing inventory, and we're seeing contracts come in more and more with people who have been searching for, a long time. And so I feel like that's going to be a trend that's going to continue. And over the long haul, you're going to see rates, peak into the high threes, probably by the middle of next year is what I would forecast. So
what I think is so interesting, Dan, about the interest rate conversation is, we talk about this a lot. Obviously, a fluctuation in interest rates impacts a buyer's emotional outlook, if you will. It gives them some sense of pause or some concern about what's happening in the market when they fluctuate. So we like when they stay kind of, nice and consistent, whatever that number is. But in reality, we're also talking about an investment that's very large and very important to families, and that's a house versus a commodity like a pair of shoes or a bag, right? And so what I think is really interesting is I think sometimes we overestimate, especially when the interest rates are as good as they are today and will be even if they were up another % or two. I think sometimes we overestimate the impact that a slight rise in interest rates will cause, right? And I think one of the ways we can really see that now is the investment space, like you said, they're really disincentivizing investors because the rates are going up. They're significantly higher than it is, for people who are buying primary residences. But when we look at the investment space, we actually are seeing one of the strongest investor purchase markets that we've seen in a very long time. Right. And so we've actually seen higher percentages in the past. That was more like 09 through 14, like that time frame. But since then, now is the highest time that we've seen of folks making investment purchases in the Valley. And so in spite of those rates, you've still got large group investment companies and your mom and pop shops who are still taking advantage of the market in spite of those changes.
Yeah, I agree. And so their efforts, I don't think really match because, and you and I have run scenarios on this. You can still positively cash flow. If you're locking a loan in the threes on an investment property, it doesn't matter if it's high threes or middle threes, you're still in great shape, and you're still going to cash flow and you're still going to take advantage of appreciation, on your side of things, which you can speak to more than I, but, you're still going to realize that benefit. So
yeah, it was interesting because, I think at the beginning of COVID, we had a lot of renters who said, I don't know what's happening with this pandemic thing, so I'm going to lock in my rental, right? And so they renewed for a year or 2 years. And from a landlord perspective, they were like, that's great. I don't know what's happening with this COVID thing. So someone wants to stay for another year or two, and I know I have solid income. Great, right? This is obviously the beginning of last year that a lot of that kind of activity happened. And so then, you had people lock in the beginning of the late 2020, early 2021 for a long-term lease. And then, of course, we had the rapid appreciation gain that occurred between March and June. And then you have these landlords going, wait, I want my money. Wait. My house is now worth, my rental property is now worth 60, 70, $100,000 more than it was last year. Actually, thank you, long-term tenant, but I'd really just like to get my money out. So we started to see over the last few months, a lot of these rentals come to the market that have longer term tenants in place. And, in a lot of cases, these long-term tenants are not paying market value for their rent because the landlords are out of state, or they don't work with a real estate professional. They didn't know that a $50 a month increase over the last 9 years has probably not kept them up with market value. And so I thought it was going to be difficult for some of these folks to offload these rental properties with this long-term tenant in place paying below market value. But the truth is, it hasn't really stopped anybody, because when an investor comes in, if there's a tenant in place, they don't have any cost in, right? It's very minimal risk from an investment perspective up front. They don't have to do anything to the property. They don't have to put money into it to flip it. They don't have to make any changes to it. It's already in place, solid income coming in. And, even for folks who are getting a mortgage, as long as it's covering their costs, right? It's going to depend obviously on your individual investment scenario and what's important to you. But in a lot of cases, as long as it's covering all of your costs related to getting into the house, you've got another year or maybe year and a half or even 2 years before you've got to put any money out into that house. And by then you've already gotten some money from the house. And then of course, if you sell it, you get all the appreciation. So it's been really interesting to see those come to the market. And I think we're going to see some more of those as people have tested it and seen that they have been able to sell those properties.
yeah, that's a good point. Have you seen any issues with the foreclosure moratorium with existing landlords? Like they're wanting to get out of properties due to that? I really haven't seen that at all.
No, and Ty, maybe you can speak to the portfolio of your clients, but I think, most of what we've seen, people have still been paying. I do think
That's
that
what
we'll
I've heard.
see. Yeah, I do think we'll still see some inventory come to the market for sure. I think it's going to be related more to what I was just mentioning about the fact that they will be able to get what they want to get out of the property. I mean, even when you sell a property with a long-term tenant in place, the lease still stays, right? And so I think people are more just focused on if there's something that they can get out of the property.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dan, thank you. And it's interesting to hear on the luxury loan piece, and you're 100% right with these rising values in homes. We need more jumbo product, right? Because when folks want to buy these houses on these escalated values, it's taken a lot of those houses over into jumbo. So yeah, awesome. Thank you, Dan, so much, and appreciate your partnership and being here with us today. Mindy, I know we tapped a little bit into this. I was reading something, I know you're going to talk about it, but this whole rent, purchase to lease thing, like these complexes and things that are happening on houses going straight to rent, just being bought. It's crazy. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about your update and what's going on and on that inventory piece.
Yeah, I guess start with that. That was a nice little audio jump there. We're having some technical difficulties today. I actually think we've done pretty well. We did a little test before we came on live, and it was sort of a rough go, but I think so far we're doing pretty good. So
I think we got it.
Yeah. I think we've worked the kinks out. So, so I mean, really over the last 3 or 4 months, we've seen a lot of single family homes get purchased just for the purpose of going into the rental market. And in fact, that's increased from about 14% to around 18% of our inventory here in Maricopa County. And like I mentioned before, we've seen that large number of individuals purchasing for the purposes of the rental community before. But since kind of that 2009 to 14 time period, this is really the highest time that we've seen that. rental prices obviously are escalating very quickly. And because of that, it's not surprising that both large companies like your Open Door, your Progress Residential, OfferPad, Zillow, whatever it might be, as well as individual investors who I think are really getting educated, hopefully by their real estate agents, about the opportunities that they have to become that type of an investor in this market. I mean, many people have more equity in their home than they have ever had. And because of that, I think we're uncovering, and Ty, you could probably speak, the same for the class team, but are uncovering a lot of opportunities to educate folks about what to do with that. Because I think a lot of people, if they didn't grow up in families that had rental properties or who talked about things like getting a home equity line of credit or a cash out refinance or what it could look like to leverage the equity in your home, they don't necessarily know what to do with it. And they've never been in a position where they even had that kind of money to be able to do something with it. So I think that's been a really fun part of this market, is to really talk about what people can do with that equity. And it's really nice to see it reflected in the numbers, that it's not just these large companies that are purchasing investment properties and building generational wealth with real estate, but it's also a lot of mom and pop, if you will, investors who are buying one-off properties where they can start or add to an investment portfolio. So I think it's also a really good piece of information to share with if you're a real estate agent, with your database or your community or your clients, but also as clients out there are watching this, to say, hey, how is that something that maybe we could incorporate into what we're doing today? From a short to long-term outlook, if you will, of what's happening in the real estate market, I have cautioned my team and also spoke in my office about this too, about use of the words like cooling of the market. I think for the consumer who isn't really well versed in how a real estate market works, and the fact that it really boils down to the difference between supply and demand, meaning do you have enough houses for the people who want to buy them or don't you? If they don't really understand that that is what drives a real estate market, then terms like cooling or even terms like shift can carry some type of a negative connotation. And so in the market today, instead of using words like the market is cooling, because in reality, the market is not cooling. There is nothing cool about a market that doesn't nearly have enough inventory for people to buy, right? What is happening is we've seen a market that is a little more accessible to people. It's a little bit easier to navigate for people. And the reason is because we're getting more inventory, so people have more options to choose from. And simultaneously, we're having slightly less properties go under contract. And so when you have those conditions change, what the outcome of that is that our sellers get to benefit from all of their neighbors that did all of the dirty work, if you will, over the last 6 to 9 months of selling their house in an extremely intense, hot, if you will, market. You don't lose $1 of the appreciation that's accumulated over the last year, but you get to do it in a little bit less of a frenzied space. And so it's so beautiful for sellers who can get their home on the market and know that in addition to getting all the appreciation that's accumulated over the last year, they also have more choices to choose from when they go out to buy. And this is getting closer and closer to the type of market that I think is wonderful for both buyers and sellers, which is a balanced market, right? It's back to the days where you'd put your home on the market and it may take a couple of weeks to sell. At that point, sellers may have a little bit of fear or of uncertainty about what's actually going to happen. So when the contract comes in, they're wholly invested in making it work, and both buyer and seller are doing their part to come together and stay together and build a transaction that really benefits both parties. Buyers have more than 30 seconds to think on a property that they want to purchase, right? I mean, it's really such a happy space. And remember that prices aren't going down in a balanced market. So you get all that emotional beauty, context to purchasing a house in Arizona. And also you're doing it while prices are continuing to appreciate. So instead of using words like cooling, I would say that we're moving more and more towards a market that is palatable for people, that is easier to navigate for people. And so I would just encourage you to kind of adopt that language when you're out talking about what's happening in the real estate market, because that's really where we're trending. We're seeing, the median amount over list price that people are having to pay go down from an average of 20,000 to 15,000. We're seeing the percentage of sales over asking price decline from 60% to 55% of all sales. We've seen the affordability index really come in just slightly under where we would like it to sit. But again, even to put that into context, we have to remember that other states across the valley who see the type of population growth that we see, the type of business opportunities, the weather that we experience throughout the year, many of their affordability indexes sit at half of what we are sitting at. And so I think it's very important that we put those things into context and continue to help our communities take advantage of a thriving real estate market here in the Valley.
Yeah, very well said, Mindy, and you're 100% right. I mean, I don't think, I think demand is an interesting word, because, we're at such low inventory still, even with, more inventory on, we still have not enough inventory, right? I mean, there's still not enough inventory, and that's going to be that way for a while. And that's why you also have builders that are building to rent now. They're building to rent, which is interesting.
And we are finally starting to see them bring some more inventory to market that is, again, a little more accessible. So we knew this was going to happen probably about 6 months ago. The resale industry has been able to appreciate faster than the new construction industry. And that's because it took them about 5 or 6 months into this sort of frenzied market to figure out how they could capitalize on things. And they really started to adopt the same strategies we do in resale, where they would put a property out in the market, get some coming soon marketing out of it, if you will. And then when it kind of becomes available, they're doing a highest and best. So it's very similar to marketing in the resale industry. They also knew that if they could sell things closer to completion, they would get more of a market value for them. So really over the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen a lot of spec opportunities, quick move-in homes that they've been building for the last 6 or 8 months that they are just now making available to people. So that is definitely starting to change the landscape a little bit. I still have a gut feeling, and I just talked about this morning, that we are going to see a little bit of a bump in demand or desire to purchase in the next probably 30 days, once buyers understand and feel that they do have some more opportunities available for them. So I'm still expecting that we're going to see some good activity end of September, early October. I think it'll be a unique time where people will actually feel again that maybe they could get into a home before the holidays. Remember, we used to talk about that? Well, last year we didn't talk about that because it didn't matter if you were in your new home because no one was coming over, right? But this year, hopefully, Delta variant, just stay where you are. Hopefully this year people can have family over for the holidays and feel good about that. And so I think we're going to have some buyers who say, I want to do that. I want to make a change for the holidays, or I want to make a change for the new year. Yeah.
Or some of those folks that might have went into those rentals for a year, right? Last year, when they decided, okay, I'm just going to rent for a year. Now's the time, and it's perfect timing. You're right, because there's a little more choice out there, and interest rates still look amazing. So there's the opportunity is just, it's awesome right now. It's just a great time to be part of the real estate market and buy a personal property, investment property, or any of that. Dan, did you have one last comment on that?
Well, what Mindy's talking about will also benefit the first-time buyer market as well, because if that home sits on the market for a couple of weeks, guess what? We might be able to get this crazy thing that we used to know called a concession to help them with costs. And that's really, and from my seat, that's really what keeps a lot of people out of the game. They may have good credit. There's a lot of expenses. It's expensive to live. And sometimes younger people have a hard time putting all those funds together. And that stabilizing market that you're talking about and getting to balance is a real benefit for first-time buyers, especially. So
Absolutely. Agreed.
All right, Sharon, I know you're going to do one quick call for events, so I'm sorry if I'm going to steal your thunder, but I want to make sure. Ty, can you talk about the water drive? Because we've got a lot of giving back to the community right now, and I want to make sure we don't miss that.
Yeah, thank you. We're thrilled to be working with United Food Bank here in the East Valley for the annual hydration campaign. So we are asking for people to donate, cases of water or money. And we've got a couple different ways we can give directly. There's only so much warehouse space for the water, so we'd love the actual donations. But then the donations financially help to restore that supply once they're handed out. And what I thought was crazy is that you can buy a pallet of water for like $150. I was like, what? Like, how many people would that? That's a lot of water for $150. So we're doing that. We've got a few different ways. Reach out, and we get a couple different links if you want to do that. Or all the Keller Williams offices around the valley are collecting water through the end of September. So see any of us about that, or we can get you the link if you wanted to donate. But the hydration campaign is in full effect for those homeless and families in need, and just who don't have enough drinking water.
And then next week, the Amy Jones group is redoing the shop closet at the House of Refuge, which we're super excited about. The House of Refuge is a place where families can get housing. They live in an actual neighborhood, in a community. And what's lovely about this is when people move into those homes, they're furnished, and then they get to take that furniture with them when they leave the program. So they've really got a good start off to their next place. And there's a place called the shop closet at House of Refuge where they can go in and they can actually pick out some housewares, if you will, to personalize their home. So we're going to go in and just make it a little bit more fun to shop in there. So if you guys are interested in getting involved with the House of Refuge, we just like to make sure we push out these names as much as we can and use every platform we can to let people know about the awesome community work that we have going on here. Because when we talk about appreciation and we talk about increasing rental prices, we know that there's certainly a population of the community that is not faring well with those changes to our market. So we want to bring light to the organizations that are serving those families specifically.
Can people donate furniture to them?
Yes, sorry. They can donate furniture. It just needs to be like apartment sized, because the houses are not very large. So for example, if it's like a table, it needs to be a 4-person table. They don't do mattresses because thank goodness they have a partnership with a company that provides new mattresses, but other furniture would be awesome to be donated. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Great. Good to know. That's awesome. What a wonderful cause. Well, and I love the water drive. Any other events that we're missing that we want to talk about before we say goodbye? All right, guys, we are going to continue our coaching conversation next week, and Don will be back as well. Tammy, thank you for all your help in joining us today. Mindy, as always, adds so much value, and so appreciate you always coming with such great market updates as well as contribution to the conversation always. Dan, thank you so much for bringing a great mortgage update for us today and being part of this with us as well. And Ty, what can I say, man? You are a sharer, and if you haven't heard Ty play, I'm telling you, the guitar, man, he is the bomb. He is good. Coach is working. All right, guys, make it a great day out there, and thanks so much. On behalf
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.